Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from R10 TV. Another quick game of Interplanetary I Spy going on here for all you space cadets out there and space researchers or amateur space sleuths, ASS for short. Thanks, Steve, for that one. Basically, today what we're going to be doing is looking at this mission here. It's called the OSIRIS-REx mission. And this was recently sent by NASA with the help of Lockheed Martin to intercept an asteroid and take some close-up photographs of it in a sort of flyby. Okay, it's called the Asteroid Sample Return Mission, and basically it's taking a whole bunch of photographs of Bennu. Now Bennu is what I would call a sort of medium-sized asteroid. It's not small, it's not massive. It's about 500 meters across. I can't remember the exact measurement, but we have some measurements here. Here's a picture of Bennu, and it does say here somewhere it's about 490 something meters across. Here we are, 492, there we are. So that's 1,614 feet, okay, the diameter. So links will be below in the description for all these pages, so you can come to the Wikipedia page and have a look at this. It's quite interesting, this one, because it's got a lot of surface rocks and boulders on it, and material, what looks like fragments and stuff, and quite a large one sticking out the side of it there, and another one there. And it's really quite interesting. And it says here it's got a 1 in 2,700 chance of impacting Earth between 2175 and 2199. Okay, so at some point in our distant, well, not so distant future, it may actually hit Earth and cause a lot of damage. But if it does do that, I'm assuming that the Space Defence Force, or whoever they are, or whatever they're called, or the Star Wars satellites will probably knock it out with a big laser or something, or something like that. Who knows? These things are already in place to defend Earth. Okay, so there's already extensive satellite cover in near space to Earth to protect us from large things like this. Okay, because if this did hurt the Earth, it would be pretty bad news. It wouldn't probably kill all life on Earth, but it would cause a massive impact and could do a lot of damage to a country or something like that, or a couple of countries even, depending on where it hit. Okay, so I'll let you read all that. I'm not going to go through all this now, because otherwise we will be here all day. Okay, so there's that page there. Okay, now this was brought to my attention, this particular thing that we're looking at today, by this person. And this person's written a sort of a book called The Crux of Cydonia, Truth, Light and the Face on Mars. And it's a study of some of the rock formations and face and head-like formations like we have on Mars. But also, this was brought to my attention because it was posted on Facebook a couple of days ago, a few days ago, and I saw this and I thought, wow, this is absolutely insane. And here's the post here, okay, from the Crux of Cydonia. Links will be below for all this stuff, so you can check it all out. This is all genuine. And there it is. It looks like a mummified head on the surface of an asteroid. Now, what would a mummified head be doing on the surface of an asteroid? I don't know. I didn't put it there. I'm just showing you what's there. And to me, it's pretty clear. You've got eye detail, you've got nose detail, you've got mouth detail, you've got a lower maxilla or jaw. You've got a jaw there with teeth sticking up there. The head comes up to a point, and there seems to be a kind of an ear there, perhaps. Now I'm going to show you that in greater detail in a minute. There's also some other interesting structures on this asteroid, which may well be natural, but look kind of interesting. Always worth looking at these things, because you never know what you might find. We're told that, you know, oh, there's nothing to see on Mars, there's nothing to see on the Moon, it's just rocks. Well, why do people keep sending all these missions there? They wouldn't be going there if it was just rocks. Now, I know there are very valuable minerals to be had on some of these planetary bodies, like the Moon and on Mars. and that's probably what they're really into. But there's also lots of things like this all over the surface, especially on Mars. And before we go any further, let's show you this. I've done some clips of this. I'll show you the raw image first. Okay, sorry, wrong folder. This one. I'll show you the raw image, which is this one here. Now these are really good quality. Now this was taken at a distance of about 2.2 kilometers, and is zoomed in right onto the surface of Bennu. And here we have this thing that looks to be a mummified and fossilized cranium or head. Okay, just here. And I'm not going to tell you how big this is yet, because I don't want you to be sizist about this, because as I have demonstrated on Mars, there are similar things of all manner of sizes, ranging from a few inches to huge, great big specimens, okay? And I'm also going to show you one on the Comet 67P, which I found back in 2015 as well. I'll show you that in a minute. So there's that, there's the raw image, and here's a raw clip. There we are. Pretty obvious to me what that is. I mean, I don't see really what else it could be. It does look very similar to some of the ones that I found on Mars. Okay, that's completely raw. I've done nothing to it at all, that image. I've just clipped it out. I've enlarged it, but I haven't enhanced it. Now I'm going to show you that enhancement again. This is how I got to it. I just drew around it carefully, or selected around it, and then turned the colour temperature up to make it get this kind of golden colour, which helps it stand out so people on small devices can see it as well. Okay, this is purely done for clarity, and makes it easier for people on all sorts of devices to view. Right, let's go over the details. We've got a lower jaw here, comes around like that, upper lip here, we have a tooth sticking up there, we have a larger tooth here, and there seems to be a tooth there as well, and there are some other broken teeth there. Okay, so there's the jaw. Cheekbone comes up to here, there's the cheekbone here. Okay, we got brow ridge here, we got a nice brow ridge there with a crease in exactly the right place there. Okay, nose comes to here like this. It's not a human nose. But of course, when you look at mummies from places like Egypt, they're very shriveled up, and basically what you have is skin and bone, and all the fat and moisture has been kind of desiccated out of the head, so you're left with basically skin and bone. Now this of course may represent a type of humanoid or person with an exoskeleton. Now this is what I think is happening with a lot of the ones on Mars that I've shown, because they're in such good condition that there's no way they could be that good unless they're fairly recent. And yet we're told that life on Mars, if there was life on Mars, it probably died out 1 billion years ago. But there's no proof of that. That's just an opinion or a statement, okay, or an assertion with little to back it up, okay? So there we are. I mean, let's take all that off of there a minute. Let's look at it properly. You've got the jaw, you've got teeth there, one sticking up, there's another one there, quite clear that one. And there seems to be a little one there as well, next to it. There's another one, a tooth there, there's the upper lip. Nose, as I just drew around there, comes like that. Comes up to there. Okay, we've got this eye here. Eye socket coming round like that, and here. And that eye there is pretty clear, and you can actually see the two eyelids, upper and lower, with the sort of join in between there. That's an eye, okay? That's what happens with mummification. The eyelids, the eyes shrivel up and dry out, and the eyelids are left and they kind of stick together like that. That's perfectly normal sort of for a mummy, okay? But of course, there was one major problem with this, and I haven't told you this yet for this very reason. The major problem with this is the size of it. This is a little bit bigger than a human, and in fact, from top to bottom, this is 9.5 meters, okay? 9.5 meters. Now, what's 9.5 meters in feet? well, I've worked that out already. The Bennu skull, this thing here, is 9.5 meters wide. Now that's the width, okay, because this has been rotated. That's 31.1 feet from the chin to the top there, okay? That's the size of a bus, okay, and wider than a bus. If this was a bus, the bus would be this big, okay? Because buses aren't that sort of wide, okay? This thing is massive, over 30 feet. And how do I know that? Well, because if you go on the page, it actually tells you. If you go to the page here, hang on, where is it? It actually gives you a scale when you go to the image. Hang on, it should say actually here. I've highlighted it here. There we are. Light coloured boulder on the upper right of the image is 31 feet, 9.5 metres wide, which is about the length of a city bus. Oh my God. And that's this. They're talking about the lighter coloured rock on the right, okay? That's this one. So we've got an exact scale, and it's absolutely enormous. Is it the largest skull that has ever been found, or the largest mummified head that's ever been found? If that's what it is. I mean, some people may disagree about what it is. A lot of people out there are very sceptical about these things, and that's fine. But no, it isn't. Because I found an even bigger one, very similar to this, on Comet 67P. I found this back in 2015. The date of the video is March the 20th, 2015. So this is years ago, over 4 years ago, actually now. And here we have it. Now this one is called Cheops. It's actually so large that I think the European Space Agency gave it a name. They actually named it. And it says that if you look at the information underneath, it tells you all the information you need to know underneath the video here about this thing. Apart from the actual size, I don't know why I didn't write the size in there. But this thing is even bigger. This is the size of a house. So it's even bigger than a bus. And in fact, I did some calculations. I counted the pixels in the original image, right? Because it gives you a scale per pixel. And it's precisely across here, from there to there, is 43 pixels, right? Each pixel represents 0.76 of a meter, right? So this is 43 pixels wide. That's 32.68 meters, which equals 107.2 feet. So this is over 100 feet across. Now that's not the entire length of it. That's the width from left to right here, as we see it on the page here. Okay, let me show you this. This is interesting. Now I got absolutely slated for publishing this, and I was oh, it's just a rock. Yeah, it might be. It may well just be a rock. It could even be a carving. But we have similar attributes and we have a similar kind of sort of shortish nose, similar kind of eye socket shape, and we got similar small kind of narrow chin underneath, and the point to it with kind of bits sticking out, like almost like horns sticking out the side, like we have on the one on Bennu. It's not the same, but it's similar. Now, unfortunately, we never get more detail than this. This is about as much detail as we get, because unfortunately there was not a real good close-up of this. So I think this is as good as the image gets, really. But this is massive. This is over 100 feet across this way. Okay, and there it is in greater context on the side of a slope on Comet 67P. Okay. For those of you who don't know, that was the Rosetta mission that landed on the surface of the comet years ago now. I've done a whole bunch of videos about this comet. There's even a tower on it, and there was even a UFO spotted above this tower, which is a kind of boomerang shape. Okay, and there was a strange kind of sound coming from the comet. I've also done videos about that. So there's a whole playlist I've got, which I'll put a link to that at the end. There's a whole playlist of videos on Comet 67P. I think I did about 6 or 7 videos about this. So you can check that out. So in a minute, at the end of the video, there will be a link, a card link, straight to that playlist. There was also this structure. I called it the monastery. It's not a monastery. I just called it that. because it's a monastery-sized structure. Okay, I'm not saying it's an actual monastery. Okay, that would be a bit silly, wouldn't it? So yeah, there's this. It's got an apex kind of shape to it there, and an angle here. This structure is also very, very large. So these things do exist on other planetary bodies. And as I said here, when the usual explanations no longer fit, the unusual must be considered. Okay? And that's kind of what we're doing. We're considering the unusual and looking at things in a different way. We're thinking out of the box. As I've said before, I mean, if you want to really be a space detective or a space sleuth, you've really got to throw a lot of the things you learned at school out of the window. You've got to climb out of the box that we all are told to stay inside. You've got to climb out of that box, pick up that box and throw it out the window, because what we're seeing on planetary bodies like Mars, like we have here, and on other planetary bodies, are very, very large craniums and skulls and mummified heads. Okay, this one is a previous video I did. NASA drilled something incredible. Discreet disclosure. This one is about a year ago. Yeah, not quite a year ago. And this is at the bottom of the lake bed. This would have been underwater. It's been crushed by the weight of probably sand and water on top of it. This is 2 feet, approximately 20. Well, less than 2 feet. It's about 20 inches from the chin to the top. It's been squashed. It's all cracked. It's actually wider than it would have normally appear because it's been squashed. But we know exactly how big this is because there's a drill hole from the rat, the rock abrasion tool they've used here to drill and take a sample right from the centre of the forehead of this thing. This is fossilised. Okay, this is probably millions of years old. And there's a scale there. It gives you an idea of how big this is compared to a human skull. Okay. Now, if I was to compare this human skull to the thing on Bennu, it would be ridiculously small. Okay. This thing, like it says in the scale, is 9.5 meters, it's over 30 feet from there to there. Now, I've put my logo here. Now, my logo is actually made up from an image of a skull I found on Mars years ago, which is kind of human-sized, okay? But it's not to scale. That is not to scale, okay? This is 30 feet. Hang on, let's look at this again. Yeah, it's 31.1 feet. Let's say it's 31, round it down to 31, okay? A human skull is not even a foot, okay? So how big would a human skull be compared to this? A human skull compared to this thing would be the size of that tooth there, okay, which is just here, sticking up. Okay, 30 foot, let's work it out. How many times is that? 1, 2, 10. A human skull's about 9 inches. A sort of standard largish one, I would say, but they are, many are smaller. So, Jesus. I mean, it's almost not even worth. I was going to get a skull and put it in the image for you as a scale reference next to it here, but it would be so tiny compared to this that you barely see it. It'd be like a little dot. Well, it would probably be smaller than this tooth here. It would be like half that size. It's ridiculous. The scale of this is absolutely insane. 31 feet from there to there. A human skull is not even a foot. A human skull would literally be about this big. Okay? Of that, I mean, it's just ridiculous, the scale. My logo is mainly put there to stop people taking my enhanced image, but I always have my logos in my videos anyway for copyright reasons. So there we are, absolutely stunning. And this thing here was about 20 inches. That's on Mars. You can check that out. NASA drilled something incredible. There's other stuff. You've got this one here, Comet 67P alien skull, Rosetta Close flyby image, Cheops. That is ridiculously big, as I said. Right, that is, let's see, yeah, I mean, that's 107 feet, you know, so Oh my God, 107 feet across, not length. So lengthwise, that's about 120, I would imagine, because that's obviously longer that way. So that's 120 feet long. Ridiculous. It's bigger than the house I'm in at the moment. It's massive. Okay? And it has very similar attributes to the one on Bennu. Very, very strange. This thing is also about between 18 and 24 inches. It's about 20, like the other one on Mars I showed you a minute ago. And you've got very good teeth detail here. This isn't mummified, this is an actual fossil. And you've got an upturned nasal cavity there, which is the complete opposite way around to a human one. So it's not human. So people can't say this is on Devon Island or somewhere like that, because this isn't human, all right? They don't have aliens on Devon Island. Jesus. So yeah, there we are. I worked all this stuff out using a calculator and everything. So the sizes are all accurate here that I'm giving you. Okay, assuming that the scales were given by NASA and the European Space Agency are accurate, and I think they are pretty accurate. No reason why they should not be. These things can be worked out. So there we have it. I'll put links to all these things below, and there'll be links to these videos at the end of this one, so you can link straight to these and check them out. I will actually quickly show you this. This was a similar thing that I found on the moon, Apollo 17. Now, this isn't anywhere near as big as some of those things. This is called Moon Skull, found near Apollo 17 astronaut. Now, this was published years ago, 2015. So this is a long time ago now. And I'll play that through a little bit. This isn't very big. It's bigger than a human size. This is what I would call a very robust, large skull, a humanoid kind of skull. But it's not human. Now, of course, people have wondered why NASA have been very cagey about the moon and why they deliberately started rumours about them not going to the moon, which they did do in the early 70s. It's because they found the evidence of life on the moon, not only buildings, but I don't even think they spotted this, because they were not told to look for it, so they didn't look for it. Okay, I mean, this may just be a coincidence and maybe a bit of an optical illusion, but there are teeth here, and it's very similar to some I found on Mars. This is heavily pitted and eroded. You've got two eye sockets. You've got a rather strange bulbous nose there, and you've got teeth here. Okay, but that's not the best example, and I'm pretty 50-50 about that one, because it's not that clear, but it could be. Now, you know, if there are buildings on the moon, so somebody had to have built them. There are buildings on Mars, somebody had to have built those. So there are structures all over these planetary bodies, and somebody, or something, or some kind of ET race must have built them. Was it the pre-Adamites? Was it these giants? Now, if this was, I mean, is it really possible for some humanoid or extraterrestrial to be that large? If this is over 100 feet, how big would the body be? If you go by sort of human-sized proportions, the head approximately fits into the body a couple of times and then into the laser. You can fit your head into a male adult body about 6 times. Okay, if you stack the heads up one on top of the other to get your overall height, it's about 6 times, I think, for a bloke, and about 5 for a woman, I think, and obviously less for children. So if you times that by, say, 5 or 6, it's 600 feet. Is it possible? I mean, this is about 120 feet from there to there. Is it possible that for a person or extraterrestrial to be that big? This would be something in the realms, so is it 600 feet? About over 700 feet tall, this would be, if this was a person with human scale, in other words, proportions, right? If you use similar proportions to people, this thing would be over 700 feet tall. Is that possible? I don't think it is. But just because I don't think it is and you don't think it is doesn't mean it's not possible. This is the problem, right? We are imposing our scale on the research, okay? Which is the wrong thing to do. The research should impose its scale onto us, especially when we have accurate meaningful measurements, okay, which can be checked and double checked and cross-referenced, okay. Now, this is a problem, and a lot of people said, oh, this can't possibly be a skull. Well, why shouldn't it be? I mean, this is only about 20 inches. I mean, compared to these other things, this is tiny, okay? Just because we're small in comparison doesn't mean it's not real. And the other point I'm trying to get across here is that we're ignoring things that are either extremely large or too small, purely based on size, not on detail and actual morphology. Now, I'm just looking at the morphology here, okay? I'm looking at the facial morphology and the actual attributes, the three-dimensional attributes, which say to me that this thing on Bennu is actually a mummified head, okay? It's too good for it to be random. Now, you could say this looks a bit like a head, but it doesn't really. Nothing really lines up. There's no symmetry there, okay? Oh, sorry. What have I done? There we are. Pressed the wrong button there. There's no symmetry, okay? There's facial symmetry here, okay? There's the line of symmetry. It's slightly turned to this side. There's the other line of symmetry going through the eyes. There. Mouth. Top of the head. This goes to a point. Now, the nose here comes back. If you take a line back from the bottom of the nose, it should line up with the bottom of the ear, which is perfectly right. It goes back at an angle there, so I would expect there to be another ear there. Okay, it's got all the right attributes. Okay, it lines up, and the top of the eyebrows should line up with the ear as well. So, and it all lines up. This is a head. Okay, now whether it's carved, could be, but why would a carved head have that much detail and teeth sticking out? It would, if it was a statue, it would be more stylized, and we wouldn't have the sort of grizzled detail of a shriveled, mummified head that has then become fossilized over millions of years. You simply would not have that level of wrinkle and sort of shriveled kind of lip detail like you get on mummies, okay? This is conducive with mummies. Shriveled skin and facial details, you know? And there are many like this on Mars. Let me show you some other examples. If you think I'm completely mad, I've got some in the folder here. I picked out that one, which I've already showed you. That's about 20 inches, massive. This thing has got very sharp carnivore teeth, or carnivorous teeth. Carnivorous. This wasn't designed for eating carrots, okay? If this guy saw you in the dark alley, he could probably bite your head clean off. Okay? There's this one that I've shown many times before. This was spotted by the Opportunity rover. Well, the photograph was taken by the Opportunity rover, and then this was completely ignored by the Opportunity team. And then I came along and found it. Okay? This is near Endeavour Crater, and is in fine shape and detail. Now, of course, much like on an asteroid, even though there is an atmosphere on Mars, it's very thin. It's almost, well, it does have an atmosphere, but it's extremely thin. Very low air pressure, so even the wind doesn't do much. So erosion is minimal, and there's no rain, and there's practically no oxygen, which means that flesh and bone would probably last for 1 million years if it was mummified and desiccated and dried out like this has. This has even got hair and an earring and that small little chin like we see on some of the other skulls, okay? The little kind of small little chin, thin chin, right? This is a common attribute. Now there's this one. This is really small. This is only a few inches, okay? Literally 3 inches from top to bottom. We've also got that pointed shape. We have the sort of semi kind of reptilian looking facial features here with a sort of almost non-existent nose. We've got teeth, a row of teeth here. We've got different sort of more smaller eyes on this one, which are much further apart. You can see those blue eyes there, okay? This is fossilized. This may be millions of years old, but this is tiny, 3 inches, okay? That was found recently by me in Gale Crater, 6th of Feb 2019, so that's quite recent. And then there's this little fella. Now this was found by Terry Burnett, fine researcher, runs the page on Facebook called Mars X-Files, which is great. He does some good work there, lots of good people on there, lots of good researchers. And he found this. Now what the hell's that if it isn't a mummy, okay? Now the problem with this one is, it's too small. People don't like it because it's too small. Oh dear. Well, that's just sizeism, isn't it? As far as I'm concerned, it's just sizeism. We're imposing our size on things that are alien and extraterrestrial, and we're probably living at some point in the distant past, but maybe not that far back. This thing is only 4 inches. Now, if it had legs and the legs weren't covered up or buried underneath here, this thing would be about 8 or 9 inches. Still very small, so it's less than a foot. So this, if it was stood in front of you, is about the size of a human skull, if it was stood up. So a human skull would come to about here, up to there, okay? About 9 inches. Mine would anyway. Mine's about 9. From my chin to the top of my head, about 9 inches. Many of you may have 8 or 7.5, some may be bigger. So, and that's completely normal. Lots of variation in human skull size. And so a human skull would literally start from about here and come up to about there, okay? That gives you an idea of scale. This is very small. Very similar in size to the Atacama humanoid or the Ataboi that was found in the Atacama Desert, okay? Was shown recently in various films with Dr. Greer. Is it Stephen Greer? I can't remember now. Yeah. So there we are. That's the same similar kind of size to that. And we have what looks like some animal remains and bones here that this thing was feeding on before he or she was freeze-dried in the cataclysm or whatever, when the atmosphere was kind of ripped apart and frozen, freeze-dried, okay? This thing could have been there for a very, very long time, but I don't think it's been there that long. And it's already got signs of damage where the hand's kind of snapped off there. Looks like it's broken off. But you can see the arm with the hand there, with fingers sticking out, the head with either some kind of hat or hair detail, like in a ponytail coming down, and quite good arm detail. Some quite complex kind of stuff going on around the rib area here that's damaged and desiccated. But that's also very consistent with mummification, where the fat on the body is literally just kind of dried out and is all kind of shriveled. So what you're seeing is skin and bone and hair. Okay, so there we are. There are things in our universe that are so strange, in our solar system that are so strange, and are so massively different in scale, it's almost impossible to get your head around. We've got this thing on Comet 7P, here's the original image, and what I did is I actually counted the pixels across here. There's 43 from there to there. If you go just above the eyebrow, there's 43. So that's an exact size, okay? Unfortunately, there's not really enough detail with this one, but it's very similar. It's very similar to the one on Bennu. So what are we going to call this dude on Bennu? Let's come up with a name. Ben? No, yeah, whatever. So leave a comment below if you've got any ideas. Let's give this guy or this entity a name. Okay. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say. Let's just take one last look at that. I'll put some quick clips of these things in a second anyway for you. This video has gone on long enough now, but this is complex stuff to try and get across, because what we are doing, we are ignoring specimens and things on Mars and on the Moon and other places like on asteroids and comets and things like that. We're ignoring them purely because they're the wrong size. This is wrong, okay? This is not the way to do space exploration. If you're going to be a proper space detective, you need to throw your concepts of size and scale out of the window, because they are based on a very narrow and limited experience of what we experience on our own small planet with our own smallish people, okay? There are some very large people on Earth, there's also very small people on Earth, so we need to look at the rest of the planetary bodies in the same way. We have very tiny people on Earth, and there are specimens of very, very, very small people that are only sort of 6 or 7 inches. But we're also giants on Earth. Many of them have been hidden, but of course it really depends on your perspective. If you're only a foot tall, I mean, a normal sized person looks like a giant. If you're 5 foot tall, then a 7 foot tall person looks like a giant. But this thing, 30 foot from the top to the bottom here, how big would the body be? Times 3 times that would be 180 foot tall, approximately. Okay, if this was similar proportions to a human male. Jesus Christ. So this thing, if it was similar to you or I in proportions, would have been over 180 feet, possibly 200 foot tall. That's ridiculous. Oh dear, this is giving me a headache, just working out the scale of these things. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I'm sure a lot of you will also find this really hard to get your head around. Pardon the pun. But, you know, I'm struggling with this because this kind of confirms what I've always thought since I was quite young. Back in the 70s when I was a kid, I used to read a lot of books about Mars and encyclopedias and stuff. And I can't remember where I read it, but I think I read somewhere that, you know, obviously there are different planets which are all very different sizes. Mars is very small compared to many planets. It's about a third the size of Earth and has about a third the gravity. And but there may be planets out there which are absolutely enormous, which we have found recently, which may be inhabited, which have people on them, on these planets that could be hundreds of feet tall. We don't know. Conversely, like on Mars, there seem to be some that were very, very tiny, okay? Less than a foot tall. But that's all within sort of natural variation. So there's no reason why there shouldn't be, okay? But the pure scale of these things, I mean, this would be over 700 foot tall if this was... Is that possible? Now, what if you came from a planet which was really large but had a low density and a low gravity? This would stop your body from suffering the effects of gravity, which means that your bones could support a lot more weight because there's less gravity, which means that the body could get very enormous indeed. So it is possible that some of these may have come from a planet which has got a much lower gravity than ours, considerably lower, which means that things could grow huge, enormous, way beyond any scale that we've ever imagined before. It's very hard to get your head around. So I'm going to call it a day now because I could just go on and on about this. I'm still in a bit of shock actually by the sheer scale of these things. And it does kind of confirm some of the other things I've found. And it's pretty scary. So credit to the Crux of Cydonia, whoever you are. Excellent work. Very interesting stuff. Do come along to this. Links will be below, as I said before, for all this stuff. I'll put the Wikipedia page up there as well. We got a nice little animation of Bennu there, which is it's kind of almost diamond shaped, but it's rounded. Obviously, it's pretty cool. And check out the other photographs because I think the Crux of Cydonia has also found in some of the other photographs, some other much smaller possible skulls and fossils and stuff as well. And why shouldn't there be? Yeah? Why shouldn't there be? As I've always said, when it comes to space exploration, do not rule anything out because one day our very survival may depend on it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Oh, and do check out, if you haven't already, do check out my new channel on YouTube. It's called Space Detective 1. Okay? I'll put a link, there's a link to it in the description below. Please come along if you're a subscriber, please go along and subscribe. It's a backup channel. I've been having a few problems with my channel. I think it got hacked a couple of weeks ago and I had lots of trouble with stuff going on. So please go along to Space Detective 1 channel on YouTube. It's basically a kind of Artelian TV Mark II really, and I put in all my archives on there for people to look at, and some of it's great stuff. It goes right back to 2013 and will be updated as we go. There's about 50 videos on there so far, so do check that out. Yeah, so here's my new channel. It's called Space Detective 1. Okay, and there's a lot of my fine videos from 2014 up here. I will be putting some of the newer stuff here. There's that that video I was on about building ruins found on Comet 67P. There's that there. So this is a backup channel, so please do come along. I'm trying to make sure that my archives don't get lost, because there have been a lot of problems with my channel recently, Artanian TV. I will still obviously be posting stuff on Artanian TV, but this is just a backup for my archives in case things go bad with YouTube, okay? So do come along, please subscribe and watch a couple of things. I'm trying to get it up to 1,000 subscribers, if possible, in the next couple of months. If that's possible, I don't know. So please do that. Please come along and watch a couple of things and give the thumbs up to various things. And that would be much appreciated, okay? So thanks for watching, everybody. Links below in the description, as always. I'll see you soon.